This episode has been brought to you in part by Canderel and Kingset Capital. Coming soon, affordable luxury condominium living at 908 St. Clair West. Nestled into a vibrant, one-of-a-kind neighborhood, 908 St. Clair West is a modern treasure, offering a sophisticated lifestyle inspired by St. Clair Village and prestigious Forest Hill. Register today at 908stclairwest.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. We are the Menschwarmers, your bi-weekly look at the world of Jews and sports. Gabe, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you? It's the week of the Olympics, and today we got a big show. We have a live human, mostly partly Jewish Olympian on the show today.
Yeah, after a few episodes of just me and Gabe, we are back to our usual programming of having an interview of someone I think that should be interesting. We're talking with David Warsofsky, a sort of journeyman hockey player who has made the U.S. Olympic hockey team due to the odd machinations of the Olympic hockey program this year. Is that an accurate way of putting it?
I think so. I think up until a couple of weeks ago, it was expected to be NHL players, and this was sort of an unexpected opportunity for David. But he, currently playing in Germany, wanted to make the most of it and take advantage, and is going to play, and seems pretty darn excited about it. And we're excited for him too. And we're really happy to chat with him as we did last week. And we're really happy to bring that to you guys today. But it's a big week in sports. Not just the Olympics are starting on Friday, which who knew? You can check out our rundown of the some Jewish Olympians we think you're going to follow on the cjn.ca, where we have that article. It should be up on the homepage all week if our producer Michael is doing his job correctly. And you'll be able to find some of our favorite Jewish Olympic athletes to talk about.
Why don't we start with talking about that? Why don't we start with talking about that a little bit? Because I think this is like the there's a sort of like slow and steady nature to professional sports where you see the same people over and over. Whereas the Olympics, it's a new crop, for the most part, a new crop of candidates every 4 years. And I think for most Jewish sports fans watching, an Olympics or something like that, you see the names, you hear the names on TV, and you think, is this person Jewish? Is that person Jewish? Get to Google and things like that. So I think we've compiled a pretty, not entirely comprehensive, but a pretty good list of the notable Jewish athletes that people should watch out for at the Olympic Games. And the first three I want to talk about, Gabe, are the three Jewish or mostly Jewish athletes on the Canadian Olympic hockey team.
The three wise men of the Canadian Olympic team. Our friends at the Jewish Telegraphic Agency phrased it that the Canadian Olympic hockey team is the most Jewish team of any kind at the Olympics.
Right.
They have.
It's probably like the most Jewish.
I assume there's some team of physicians that is sent by some country that has a couple of more Jews, relatively speaking. But
aside from the Israel baseball team, in terms of like a Canadian Olympic team, it's probably the most Jewish team since the 1936 basketball team. I haven't done any real research into this, but I'm just going on my gut here that it's like, if there's been any Canadian Olympic team sport that's had more than 2 Jews on it, I'd be impressed. So this is pretty good. And those three guys,
really good.
Yeah. So those 3 guys are Joshua Hosang, Devin Levy, and Jason Demers. And they're sort of representative of who gets to go to these Olympics to play hockey. You have Josh Hosang, who is a sort of prospect who has had some difficulty cracking a big league roster. Is that accurate?
I think that's right. He has had, I don't want to say plenty of opportunities because there's no such thing as a real full-time, opportunity, but he's been playing in the AHL for a while, looking for room on an NHL roster, and is still a very talented scorer. So he's been sort of expected to score a lot of goals at this Olympics, and he's of a really good young quality that the team is excited to have. And that's sort of very complementary with Devin Levy, who is young and never played in an NHL game. He's 20.
Right. He's the really, young upstart, real prospect. Will have a shot someday. This is giving him some international experience, and
exactly. And he's won he won the best goalie award at last year's World Junior Championship, where he sort of carried Canada throughout the tournament. And then so we've got the young, talented a player looking for his shot, looking for a tryout. We've got the incredibly young player who has bright future in front of him. And then we have the wily veteran of Jason Demers, who's on the tail end of his NHL career.
Right. Who's sort of, been a 13-year NHL pro, playing in Russia now, sort of towards the end of his career. We should say not a fully Jewish guy, but someone who learned about Jewish ancestry later in life on his dad's side and has embraced that to a certain degree without necessarily identifying as Jewish, but worth highlighting and worth knowing about for Jewish sports fans as well. And all of this is just because, the NHL players essentially, a decision was made by the NHL not to send its players to the Olympics, I guess because of COVID and the disruption associated with it. Was that ultimately the reason, or they don't have to give a reason why?
Yes, it was the disruption, as well as the disruption of COVID, as well as I think the risk the teams weren't necessarily willing to take in sending all their players out for a couple of months or for a couple of weeks, and then maybe not getting them back.
So that will probably, hopefully that changes by 2026, and maybe we'll see a coterie of Hughes brothers on the U.S. Olympic hockey team,
and Devin Levy on the Canadian one sticking around. I mean, he's only 20, so realistically, he has 4 more Olympics in him.
Right. And so maybe we'll see that at the 2026
the coterie of Hughes brothers, the 3 wise men of the American national hockey
team. In the Milano Olympics of 2026. I think we should. So that's. Just want to talk about one other athlete that we profile, and that's I think Jason Brown, the American figure skater, probably has the best shot at winning a medal. He's up there with the Americans
in the non-team sport world.
Yeah, in a non-team sport, right? Because the Canadians, I think, are, if not favorites for a medal, then certainly have a good shot at it. But Jason's a guy.
The Americans and our buddy Dave as well.
Yeah. Jason won a bronze at the Sochi Games in 2014. I don't know if he's skating in the team event at this Olympics, but if he is, that's a really good chance for a medal. And if not, on his own, he's had some success even the last few years. He started getting towards the end of his skating career. I think he's 26 or 27 now.
But he's incredibly decorated. He's won world championship medals, Olympic medals, very, very successful Jewish athlete. And the music he skates to, Jamie, you'll have to explain this a little more. That's Jewish some way.
Yeah, that's right. He's been skating to the soundtrack from Schindler's List. He's skated to music. Yeah. Not necessarily uplifting, but moving. I think moving is what you're going for with figure skating.
Moving. That's what we're going for. Yes.
I think there's been a trend, I think, in the long programs to sort of skate to something that's more somber, that is sort of more pulling at the heartstrings. And for the short programs, it's more of the, let's get loud, sometimes more disco things and stuff like that.
That seems like a good opportunity for Jewish composers to get into the Olympics in ways. Like, I bet, there's a lot of Hans Zimmer soundtracks that are played during long programs.
If you need something that's written in a minor chord, then a Jewish composer might be the one that you want to choose.
Exactly. I wonder if we could find someone or convince Jason Brown, if we talked to him, to skate to like a Neftuli brown wine clarinet solo that's 5 minutes long. One of those like bop 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 klezmer tunes on a short program. That seems like it would have some pizzazz for him.
Yeah. We should mention as well that Israel is sending a team to the Winter Olympics, as they tend to do. Unfortunately, the sledding Israelis did not make it. AJ Edelman, who we've been working on bringing onto the show, hopefully in a near episode, to talk about sort of how they just sort of nearly missed out on the Olympics. But Israel will be sending some figure skaters, a few skiers, and I believe one short track speed skater
or two.
Yeah. And, I don't think it has such a developed program, understandably, in any of these winter sports. I think a medal at the Winter Olympics is unlikely. I don't think that Israel has ever medaled at the Winter Olympics, but something to keep an eye on.
Do the Israeli skiers train in Israel? Do we know the answer to this? Hopefully a listener can let us know the answer to this. I feel like every time I've ever gone to Israel or talked to someone about going to Israel and said I was Canadian, they go, "Oh, they're skiing in Eilat," which
not in Eilat, up in the north, but
up in the north, right? Sorry, they're skiing and Eilat in the same country. You could go to both in one day, but I don't know if that's where they train. It seems unlikely to train at the Olympic caliber.
I don't think they do. I mean, there's nothing obviously of the Olympic caliber, and the same is probably true. I mean, there's a few ice rinks in Israel, I don't know exactly how many, but I would assume that, they're not set up for training speed skating necessarily. It's, it is amazing that so many warm weather countries send Olympians to the Winter Olympics. And like, if you look into how these people train, a lot of it is like warm weather training. And then it's like 1 month a year that they actually get to go on the ice or on the hill or whatever.
Calgary.
Exactly. And learn
it
those
reminds
things.
me of the scene in Cool Runnings when they're riding in the little soapbox bobsled. And John Candy has the thing. I wonder if it's like that in Israel, where they're all rollerblading down the boardwalk in Tel Aviv, and then like Zohan is standing there with his stopwatch saying that it's not fast enough. That's how I assume Israeli athletes train.
Right.
But
I think it's
the Olympics.
Well, I just want to mention one more thing about the Olympics, which I think is an important thing that we should keep an eye on or think about as sports commentators, I guess, to a certain degree, and I think as a Jewish community as well, which is the political side of things and the decision to boycott the Olympics or not boycott the Olympics. We've talked about this a little bit in the past. I'm not going to pretend that I have an answer to this question. I think it's a difficult one. I think we get around it as much as we can by focusing on the individual athletes themselves and sort of who they, what they represent in terms of their achievement. I tend not to go in for so much of the nationalistic part of the Olympics in the first place. Although I'll have my rooting interests in Canada's team or these Jewish athletes that we've talked about. But, there is a genocide going on in Western China. The games are being hosted in mainland China. And I think there's lots of people in the Jewish community who have put a focus on this. I think rightly put a focus on this and said, this is absolutely something that should be boycotted. So I know recently there was an ad that went in the New York Times, signed on to by Natan Sharansky, by Bernard-Henri Levy, other prominent Jewish activists and Jewish thinkers, pointing out that, there should be a boycott of these games, urging people to walk away. I think it's something that's really important. The Olympic Games are, as much as they are an amazing sporting event, they are also going to be used in this case to whitewash terrible human rights oppression. And I don't have a good answer to this. I'm not going to say personally that I'm not going to watch. I have an interest in it, just in terms of I love watching the sports. I love watching the athletes compete. But, I guess in that way, I'm complicit in it as well. And I think we all are to a certain degree. It's good to know that at the very least that we are, participating in this sort of terrible thing.
It's a really unfortunate situation because, as you mentioned, it's sort of used to whitewash a lot of the issues of the country. And as I think a lot of people have rightly suggested that the Olympics have become sort of corporate and poisonous over the years. They're no longer about finding global peace through sport, but instead of using it to hide, the opposite of peace, human rights atrocities and unethical political machinations. And unfortunately, it leaves the athletes stuck in the middle of it. What was supposed to be the pinnacle of human performance is now sort of almost the sideshow for a geopolitical confrontation that nobody right now wants to make.
Yeah. It's unfortunate for the athletes because I think they're, I'm not going to pretend sports is apolitical or anything like that, but it does put them all in a position of having to effectively make a political decision on going to the Olympics or if they decide to go to the Olympics, which I don't think there's been a real boycott from individual Olympians. And again, I don't blame them. You work your entire life to compete at this highest level, to peak at this certain moment. It's maybe a little too far to expect that individual athletes are going to boycott if their countries are not.
And the Olympic Committee, which raises billions of dollars off of sponsorship fees, not to mention untold bribery, frankly, has a vested interest of there's significant money at stake for a lot of different people to have the games go on in any way, shape, or form that they can, regardless of the ethics behind it. Unfortunately, I think that problem is going to continue and getting worse. The sort of cumbersome organization and enormous expense that goes into the production of an Olympics can only really happen these days in countries without a lot of government oversight. I think if we learn, those tend to be the places that are also committing human rights violations.
That's a good point. I think if we learned anything from the pandemic, it's that sports at their least pure are just something to put on television, and you got to deliver those television shows to the advertisers. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. You don't have to focus on that too much as a sports fan.
They play on TV than anything else. That's what we've learned.
anyways, I don't have a good answer for any of this. I think it's something that people should look into and continue to read about. And I'm thankful that there are leaders in the Jewish community who are speaking out about it, and will continue to speak out about it, and continuing to speak out about the persecution of the Uyghur community in China. But I think we could probably leave it there in terms of our discussion about the Olympics.
I think so. I think we've said our piece, and it might be time to move on to a sport that has a different set of ethical issues.
Sure.
Professional football.
Ethical issues in professional football. I joke. There actually is something that just happened, that just broke earlier today, that I wanted to briefly mention, which is this amazing lawsuit being brought by former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores, including against Jewish Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross. And there's two sort of amazing allegations against Ross personally. One is that that Ross offered Flores $100,000 for each loss in his final year so that they could improve their draft position, which is amazing. Wow. I've never heard of that. And, I think people have talked about in the past that one of the issues with tanking, that if you're the head coach, it's hard to tank and then tell the team that you want to get your next job at. Don't worry about that, 1-15 or 1-16 season. I'm actually a good coach. They just wanted us to tank. And
I was doing that on purpose because I got $1 million extra for it.
Yeah. So that was sort of amazing. And the second thing was that he alleges that Ross basically set him up with a prospective quarterback to come to the Dolphins a few years ago, in a way that would have been illegal under the tampering rules, because the player was still under contract. I mean, he just arranged a meet cute at a marina between Flores and Ross. So
was that Josh Rosen?
It's not named. It's not named in the lawsuit who the prospective quarterback was. But I thought those are two pretty funny things. And, I guess Stephen Ross is a skilled businessman. He certainly made a lot of money in New York real estate. So I guess he knows what he's doing, but that's definitely trying to get around the NFL rules.
That's a wild story. Well,
yeah.
They're not, that's a great piece of news. The other piece of news this week, obviously, the Super Bowl teams are set. Los Angeles and Cincinnati. One thing I wanted to mention, this is the first, I think, Super Bowl, Jamie, you've been following, there's no Jewish players in the Super Bowl. Yeah. What's also interesting is, for the first time in a long time that I can remember, it's the first Super Bowl with no Jewish owners either.
Yeah. Less Jewish content in this one than in a long time. No Jewish player.
I think a lot of people think Stan Kroenke is Jewish, due to a bunch of various anti-Semitic tropes. Los Angeles, usury, but he is not. He is not Jewish. So we don't really have much to follow other than, I suppose, future legal action in the NFL right now.
Well, the one Jewish thing in the Super Bowl, I should say, is that the game is being broadcast on NBC, and play-by-play announcer who's going to be calling it, of course, is the legendary Al Michaels. Grew up Jewish in New York. He's been the guy for a long time. He's called some amazing stuff. Been in the news recently because
do you believe in miracles? Back to the Winter Olympics.
Back to the Winter Olympics.
Do you believe in miracles, guy?
And
I think he's ever wanted to just drop that again.
I think you could just
on some other sporting event.
I think that you get to say it once, because if you say it twice, you become the story, and you don't want to become the story if you're the commentator.
Do you think Al Michaels has said, do you believe in miracles, at every single Hanukkah dinner that his family, his children, his grandchildren have ever had?
I hope so.
At the end of the story, they tell the story, and the oil lasted for 8 days. And then his son just sort of points across the room, and Al on the other side goes, do you believe in miracles?
I really hope so.
I hope so too. If we ever get him on the show, I'm going to make that suggestion to him.
So his contract is up, and they've been talking about Amazon potentially poaching him from NBC, which would really be a big move. I guess, they're getting Thursday Night Football soon, and I don't know. I guess all football is going to be on streaming at some point. So we'll see what happens with Al. He did a great profile about a year ago now that Drew Magary did on Defector. Everyone should check out if they haven't had a chance. Fun fact about Al Michaels that's in that profile: he does not eat vegetables, in the slightest.
Like Jordan Peterson style?
There's an anecdote in the piece, if I'm remembering correctly, where they give him a hamburger that has a piece of lettuce on it, and he instantly sends it back. And he won't even just take it off himself. He's like, no, you have to go make me a new hamburger. He just won't do it.
That's really weird.
An apparently incredibly healthy 70-year-old man, despite this aversion to vegetables. So good luck to Al. Good luck in calling the Super Bowl. He obviously, he definitely does not need it. He is the consummate pro. And I think
yes, he is absolutely the consummate pro, and it's very exciting to see him still going at this age. Well, that sounds like about enough recap of the depressing stories in sports this week. But let's get on to some exciting stuff. Our main event tonight, our interview with Olympian and good guy David Warsofsky.
We're joined today by David Warsofsky. David, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Both great.
Want to congratulate you first off on making the Olympics team. You're going to the Olympics, Team USA hockey.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very
it's
cool.
Definitely exciting, and something that I never really thought was possible after the last couple of years, but kind of a dream come true, to be honest.
Sure. So, David, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background, where you grew up, things like that?
Yeah, I'm originally from Marshfield, Massachusetts. Kind of grew up playing hockey there my whole life. I've got 3 older brothers, so we all played, and it was one of those things where you play for your local team and you never really leave that team. So that's kind of how I grew up, and then moved on to Marshfield High School for my freshman year. Got to play with one of my brothers there, Ryan. And then I moved on to Cushing Academy Prep School for 2 years. Also got to play with my brother Ryan there again. And then the national program, then on to Boston University. And then I turned pro with the Bruins. And kind of since then I've had a little bit of a whirlwind of a career, but it's a career that I wouldn't have it any other way. I think if you could ask anybody.
That is really local. You stayed local for a very long time.
Yeah, I was originally drafted by the Blues, but I got traded to Boston when I was in college. So I was in the Boston area for majority of my career, and even when I was in Providence, obviously not too far from Boston. So it was nice for my family, and I've got a lot of family. Like I said, I've got 3 brothers, my parents, and a lot of nieces and nephews. So it was fun to be local, and now I'm overseas, so a little bit further away.
Every pro talks about how much they love the team that they're playing for, but it must be, a little extra special when you get traded to your hometown team and get a chance to play for them, right?
Yeah, it definitely was. I had no idea it was happening, and then I obviously got the call. I want to say we were watching like a World Cup soccer game at one of my brother's houses, and that was like that at the time was a dream come true to play for the Bruins, or to get traded to the Bruins and hopefully have a chance of playing for them one day. So I was really fortunate, and I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Right. And you mentioned you've had a bit of a whirlwind career. We understand that you're now playing in Germany for I might put this ERC Ingolstadt. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually really good. Spot on.
And how's that been moving to Bavaria and playing in sort of small town or medium sized town
Bavaria?
Germany?
Is that like traditional Bavaria?
Yeah, it's traditional Bavaria. Trust me, I had no idea what I was really getting myself into, but we've loved it. My wife is over here with us, and I have a son who's 18 months old. So it's been a transition. Yeah, thank you.
I have a 10-month-old son. That's there you go. It's a lot.
Yeah, and my wife is pregnant, and she's due March 10th. So thank you. We're going to have 2 under the age of 2, so that should be interesting.
Yeah. Well, so we should say that you were recently selected, as we mentioned, for the U.S. Olympic hockey team. This is not your first time representing the U.S. In an international tournament. You had some experience in the World Junior teams, I understand, back when you qualified as a junior player. What was that experience like?
It was good. I've been so fortunate to represent my country on a couple different occasions, and every time you reach a different age, there's another goal that you want to make. I know I wanted to make the under 18 team when I was 17 years old, and then when I was in college and under 20s, that's the World Juniors. I wanted to make that, and then after that, you're like, oh, I want to make the Olympic team, and obviously that's the highest level in the world. So I've kind of been so fortunate to now I'm getting the opportunity to play for the Olympic team. Kind of been able to play for each team as I've kind of gone up the ranks, which it's pretty cool to think about. So kind of just taking it all in at this point and enjoying it as much as I can.
So can you talk to us just a little bit about, like, you're in Germany now, you're from America. What is the whole I'm about to go to China in 3 days like what is the protocol? Do you have to show a passport? Like, how do they get you from Germany to the rink in Beijing?
It's honestly a really good question. I think we're still even kind of sorting through all that. Luckily, the USA hockey staff has been so good with kind of just walking me through, and they take a heavy load off of me, and I've kind of got to do little things here and there. But there's a lot of paperwork behind the scenes. I'm not really doing this paperwork, but I know you've got to be like released from your team here in Germany. But then you've also got to get like forms filled out in order to enter China, because right now I'm obviously a US citizen, but I have a work visa in Germany, but now I'm going to China. So there are so many things that I don't even think I know about that are going on behind the scenes in order to make this work.
Right.
So just it's impressive that, the people at USA Hockey are able to coordinate, the lives of, 25 hockey players and staff, and, get everyone over there safe and sound. So they're still kind of in the process of it. And it was really just a quick turnaround because the rosters didn't,
Sure.
They came out 2 weeks ago. So it's been happening pretty quickly.
And I take it you'll be going to China in a few days.
Yeah, I think I leave February 1st or February 2nd. We play here until the 30th. So I'll play my last game here and then take off. I know there's the team is flying out of the US together, but
Right.
I'm obviously over here in Germany, and there's a couple other players in Sweden. So those guys we're kind of heading out separate.
It gives you a very abbreviated sort of training camp before the games actually start, for everyone to get together and play together, it seems like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all the teams. So I know up here we've got a couple German players and another Danish player, and we're all in the same boat. It's kind of, meet up with your team on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, have a couple practices, maybe an exhibition game, and then you jump right into it come February 10th. And
wow,
it's a quick tournament.
And are you going to be, maybe this is sort of a personal question or a Team USA hockey question. It's your first Olympics. Are you going to be a explore the city of Beijing type guy, or like a McDonald's in the Olympic Village type guy?
I think I would be an explore the city type guy, but I'm pretty sure everything's on kind of lockdown with COVID. I think the circle is going to be pretty tight. I don't know if we'll be able to do much, touristy stuff, or see the Great Wall of China or anything like that. So, I mean, usually I'm definitely one of the guys that likes to get out as opposed to kind of sit in and hang out or watch Netflix. But I think under these circumstances, it might be kind of locked up at the Village.
That's good to know, and a bit of a bummer, but you know what? It's still the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take that to go to the Olympics.
David, we should mention, I mean, our research methods in terms of determining, Jewish athletes is pretty much confined to the internet and looking people up and stuff like that. So we should say that, you're someone who is listed as Jewish on Wikipedia, and I can see a source on Wikipedia with three citations there. But in your own personal history, I mean, we talked about this before. You have some Jewish background, but you don't necessarily identify. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's true. My dad is Jewish, and growing up, we would go to my grandparents' house and celebrate Hanukkah to a certain extent. We weren't doing 8 days of gifts, but we would do it a little bit. And then sure. My mom is Catholic, so my brothers and I we were always raised Catholic. Celebrated Christmas and all that. So kind of throughout the years, I've celebrated and practiced being Catholic a little bit more than being Jewish, but obviously it's something that my dad is, and, we're never going to take that away from him. So we definitely proud of it. But just the way my brothers and I were raised was Catholic, but, I still think it's pretty special. You should never take away that history of it. And, I'm proud of, my grandparents and my dad and, everything
sure.
that his family's been through.
And we should say, hopefully you have the added bonus of a few more Jewish hockey fans cheering you on at the Olympics, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like we had talked about earlier, I think just having the Jewish background and, having someone in your family Jewish, I think it goes a long way. And I know the community really supports the hockey players.
It's true. We've talked to a few Jewish NHL players. We talked to Nate Thompson last year. We talked to Zach Hyman, and they all say the same thing, that wherever you go, someone's going to be cheering for you, no matter where you are in the world, because you're the Jewish guy. and that's awesome. And I think a lot of fans, there are a million ways to know if somebody is Jewish, but your name frankly implies it to a lot of people. And that's probably been true of you your whole life, even though you grew up sort of in a Catholic community. But that leads me to my next question. And this is just, personal religious curiosity. Is Boston hockey Catholic, like the trifecta? It feels like it's a stereotype, but is that like a big thing there?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe years ago it was. I don't know, just in my personal opinion, I think over the years it's kind of gone away a little bit. I think that it has to do for a couple of reasons, but like the Catholic schools that used to be so good. Like my two oldest brothers, Adam and Jared, my oldest brother's 10 years older than me. He went to a Catholic high school, and he went there for hockey because that's where the best hockey was like the Catholic Conference. And now I think the level of play has kind of moved away from that conference. And as you guys probably know, it's kind of more prep schools and juniors now. So I feel like that right there has kind of strayed away from like the Catholic mecca of hockey being Boston. But, there's obviously still a lot of Catholic is huge in Boston, right? It's still a very popular religion. So there's still a lot of Catholic hockey players. But I just think the school and the level that you play at now is kind of more defined as, prep school or junior. So maybe it's kind of gone down a little bit in that sense.
Right. Well, David, thanks so much for joining us. I think we'll leave it there. Let you get on your, start packing for Beijing. We wish you all the luck in the Olympics. Not all the luck, 'cause I think we're both cheering for Team Canada, but some luck at the Olympics.
Michael's in Arizona, so he's got our producers in Arizona, so he's got some Team USA on his side.
Yeah, perfect. But thank you guys very much, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Have a great time, and then I can't imagine going to the Olympics for 2 weeks and then coming back and you're gonna have a second child all of a sudden shortly after. So good luck with all of that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully you have a medal to put on that baby, and that would make a really good Instagram post.
Yeah, I agree. That's a perfect, great idea.
Yeah.
Thanks again, David. Take care.
Credit the mentors if you do it. I'm kidding. Thanks again.
We'll see you guys later.
Thanks again to David for joining us. Good luck at the Olympics. I think he's already out there now. I saw some pictures on his Instagram showing him out in Beijing with the rest of Team USA. So hope he's acclimatizing well and getting ready.
Do you feel a little bit strange having American athletes? I love how, we are a Canadian show. We're proudly Canadian, cheer for Canada and international sports. And obviously we want David to succeed, but like Team USA,
Do you feel like there's a real Canada-US hockey rivalry? I feel like they've met the Olympics a few times, but I don't know.
I think so. I think to some degree. Well, they've met in a few gold medal games, which makes it like really have high stakes.
Yeah, 2002, I think was a big one, in 2010. Yeah, I'm not a big hockey fan, so I'm not the right person to ask, but how much did Canadians get it up for the Olympics last time with, the sort of scrappy bunch of almost was and has-beens and all that put together?
Not much. I think they're actually a little more excited about it this time, just because it's been in the news, and the pandemic has made sports something we all want.
Right.
But I think also the tease of NHL players maybe brought people in a little bit more. I think this is a relatively more exciting thing. Before we go, there's something I wanted to touch on about David's interview. We talked a little bit about his upbringing in Boston and his experience and his sort of analysis of the cultural impact of Catholic high school hockey in the Boston area. I think that's a really, really interesting topic we talked about, and sort of an interesting thing you talked about, that if you're, in Boston, good enough at hockey, or you're Catholic, you play hockey, you go to a Catholic high school, and they have the best hockey programs to go back and forth on. And it certainly affected his, multi-religious identity growing up, as well as it would to anybody else. But I'm trying to think of Jewish analogs, sort of, if there's a place and a time. We know Boston is a very Catholic city. There's a place and a time where Jewish sports had the same. I think we could think about some of the New York in the 1950s and 60s,
probably like the Bronx gyms. The Bronx gyms, basketball in the 40s and 50s were probably like a hotbed of Jewish sport.
Like the Washington Heights JCC probably had a pretty good basketball, and even growing up, I mean, you look, there's areas with big Jewish populations. I think about like when I was a kid, you'd see like I played in a pretty, I would say, Jewish heavy hockey league. And, you know, you had kids with like payas and seat skating circles around everybody else.
Sure.
They were like Gretzky,
like,
my mom always says.
To the degree that there's like organized American handball, I feel like that's pretty dominated by Jews. There's probably like a shul circuit in New York still.
Well,
not that's played by so
like
many
shul
people.
Softball in Portnoy's Complaint, where he writes about watching the shul softball games when everyone, you know, it's more like the center fielder's complaint or whoever is complaining the whole time. Have you ever played in a shul league softball game?
No, never.
It's slow moving.
Yeah. I bet. I guess there's like the entertainment circle pickup games and stuff like that. Like Gary Shandling had like a legendary pickup game.
Basketball in Gary Shandling's backyard.
Yeah, I feel like that was like a pretty Jewish game as far as it goes. Like I'm sure some careers were made and lost on that basketball court.
Yeah, that I think that left the Sandman, Adam Sandler, with a pretty serious, you know, I think he is now what I understand, he's now sort of the keeper of that Sunday afternoon game.
Now everyone plays of Hollywood Jewish pickup basketball.
Yeah, like Shandling used to be. Right. Adam Sandler is now that, and they all go to his house instead.
A friend of mine's claim to fame is that he was at the downtown Y, and Sandler popped in for a run to play some basketball. He played basketball against Sandler. Just
with some strangers?
Yeah, he was just playing pickup ball, and like Sandler just popped in because like he wanted to play ball. And just like apparently he does that. If he's on the road, he just wants to play. He wants to go for a run sometimes. So
I bet Sandler's pretty good. I hear he's pretty good.
Continue playing at your local JCCs. Adam Sandler may just show up to play basketball with you. Yeah.
I think that'll just about do it for our show this week. We want everyone to enjoy the Olympics and the Superbowl that is next weekend. Thanks again to David Warsofsky for having us on the show. Thanks again to Michael Freeman. I'd like to leave you with a quick anecdote of a player we found on the Chinese women's Olympic team, Anna Fairman, who's not Jewish, it seems out. We did some research. Anna Fairman. Yeah, she's an American from Michigan playing on the Chinese national team. This is relevant to us because her father is named Michael Fairman, who we often confused, and is a name that gets confused for our producer, Michael Freeman, quite often.
Yeah. Similarly, I think I can sign off on anyone who's listening. If you're going to watch the Olympics and you're seeing some sort of Nordic or Central European country, and there's a guy named Hoffman or a woman or skater Berg with the last name Berg or something Berg, we've checked, they're not Jewish. And it's very tempting because you see these people and then you look it up. It's like, born in Malmo, they haven't had very many Jews there in the last little while. I'm sure there's some. But
the one versus two ends in a Hoffman or a Silverman. That's my mom the other day asked me about Anaheim hockey player Jakob Silverberg, who I think, this is a good question. Probably one for another episode. We're going to leave you for another episode. But who do you think the athlete the most people have said to you, James, as the co-host of this podcast, are they Jewish?
Yeah. We could probably figure it out for another time and try to nail it down.
Yeah, let's suck on that for a couple of days, and then we'll come back for the next show.
As always, you can find our podcast on the Canadian Jewish News website, thecjn.ca. Our whole archives are there. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Review it if you can, wherever you get it. Share it with your nieces and nephews who may not be as tuned into the Canadian Jewish News. You can find us on Twitter at Menschwarmers. And we'll see you again soon, probably with a recap of how some Jews did at the Olympics and talking about everything else that's going on in the world of Jews and sports.